Hey everybody, if you're watching this video, it probably means that you have either played or purchased Coaster Park, so thank you so much for buying the game. It's one that we're really excited about, and I wanted to go over some stuff to help you enjoy your experience as best you can. It's a very unique game, and it has some different stuff going on than you're probably used to. So one thing that we should point out is the game is a physics-based game with a large dexterity component. So it's going to require you not only to build roller coasters that make sense, but also may require you to give the marble a flick or try to manipulate the track a little bit. So I want to start out by showing you how to build a roller coaster appropriately. So your coaster supports first are going to nest like so. And you're going to, of course, put the second piece in there to build the track for your marble. Now, you'll notice it's a little bit loose, a little bit flimsy. That's to be expected. Now, one thing that I've seen done wrong a lot, make sure when you're building a ride that the next piece of track slots to the outside of the previous piece. So it's going to create a channel where the earlier track goes to the inside and the new track goes to the outside. Putting the old track to the outside isn't going to work. I've also seen some pictures online of people setting track up like this, where they just kind of put two pieces of track together. Don't do that. Absolutely will never work. So you want to always make sure that the track slots to the inside of the previous track. And now we've got a nice 3-length coaster. And put a little support on the end. Now, a couple of things to point out before I roll a marble down the track. Up here, you have a few options. It's a little bit loose. You can, as an easy way to do, just take a support and put it in upside down. It's going to give it a little bit more support. But for advanced players, you're probably going to want to play a little bit with this. But to start out, let's take a look and see how this marble goes. Pretty good and works. That's a successful coaster. I would get points for all sets. This is a pretty easy one to do because you can see the hills get progressively smaller. This isn't a very risky coaster. This is one that generally works well. So that's how you generally build a ride. Now we're going to go over some tips and tricks here shortly. So what we have in front of us is another thing that you may run into, which are roller coasters that just don't quite want to work. A little bit difficult to get over. So just setting this, I could do this all 50 times and it's never going to get over this hill. So there's a couple of techniques that you can use that are a little bit more advanced. Now, the reason this one doesn't clear automatically, it's worth 5 points. It's the second most valuable hill in the game. It's a little bit harder to get to work. One thing that you can try doing that I'm not very good at is use a little dexterity and give it a flick or a push. I am not super dexterity based, but you can see you can give it a flick. Now, another technique that you can use if you zoom in here is if you play a little bit with a variance between the hill by making this starting hill a little skinnier. Now you run the risk of the marble going off the side when you do this, but you can also use it, as you can see there, you can also use it to get a little bit more speed. Which is a good technique is to either flick the marble or to play with the separation between the starting hill. So you'll remember I said in the last little clip that an easy move to do is to place this hill, to place a support at the start of the top hill. But that does limit your ability to play a little bit with the thickness to score more points on these high value targets. So I mentioned early on, it's a game that has a physics component, but it also does have a strong dexterity component. So if you're able to manipulate the starting hill or you're better at flicking the marble, you're going to be able to clear hills that under normal circumstances just won't work. So let's take a look at some other things that we've seen some complaints about, which are poorly constructed or poorly designed roller coasters. So you have in front of me a ride that is probably not going to go very well. And this is a thing that, let's point out, you can roll a marble down this hill and it's gonna go flying off and careening, and there's a reason for this. This is a bad design. You shouldn't be building rides like this. The really small hill after a large hill followed with a bigger hill is unlikely to be successful. Now, if you're extremely lucky, sometimes this first hill can actually hop and send the marble flying and catch this hill. It's the only way this is going to work. It's not a really good idea to design rides like this. So complaints of marbles flying off the side of the coaster are very often down to the fact that the next hill is too small. Marble has some trajectory to it. It's usually spinning at a not straight angle, and it's going to come up and usually go flying up or off to the side. And that usually has to do with it carrying too much inertia at the top of this hill. So you would want to probably switch these two guys around, buy some specialist cards that let you do so. If you were to have constructed the ride a little bit smarter, you would find a ride right here that probably you're going to have a lot more success with. So the order in which you put these things, the order in which you think out how to build these is really going to have an effect on your success at the game. Now, let's talk about small starting hills. Not all the starting hills can be the big 400-footer number A. There are in the game these smaller hills, and you can actually have a lot of success building rides with smaller hills, but you need to be careful of a couple of things. You're going to need to build shorter rides usually, and you're going to need to build them a little closer together. Now, I'm going to also show a common problem that can exist here. So, if your marble is going off to the side on a secondary piece, there's a couple of things to check out. If we can get the camera over the top here, I'll show them to you. The first is that this has gotten really skinny. If the marble approaches this, it's probably not going to be very successful, so you're going to want to open it up a little bit and just make sure that there is a gap maintained here. Now, in this instance, let's see how this goes. Still going off the side, and there's another thing that could be causing this. Try, if you run into a problem of a roller coaster going off the side, to flip one of these pieces around. And this is an issue where sometimes the punch board, I actually built that wrong too. Sometimes the punch board can have a little bit of the same bend to it if they're both facing the same direction. Usually it won't affect your ride, but if it does have an issue with one of your rides is going off to the side, simply flip one of the two pieces of track around and try again. So now I'm not going off the side, but I need a little bit more speed. So I'm going to try my earlier trick of pinching. Still not enough, so let's try it one more time with a little bit more speed. And success. Didn't clear the last hill, but I was able to clear 2, which would score me 5 points for what is a really short roller coaster. So that brings us to the elephant in the room, the loop. Let's talk a little bit about the loop. First of all, it was included in the game as intended to be something fun to play with. We have a slip of paper in the box that says, we suggest you don't play with the loop. I cannot state strongly enough. Please do not play the actual game using the loop. Focus on playing the game without it. This is something that's fun and included and intended for you to use outside of playing the actual game. It takes too long, it's too hard to construct the loop, and it's going to really bring the fun to a halt. So please do not play the game with the loop. That said, the loop does work. It's just hard. If you want to zoom in with the camera here, I'll show you how the loop works. So the loop support is going to double support the loop. And as it comes up, the previous piece, both sections of it are going to slot to the inside of the previous section. So if I remove this, you'll get an idea of how to build the loop. So we're going to start with the loop in 2 pieces, the part going up and the part coming down. You have to take the 2 up pieces and manipulate them to the inside, space these into 2 doubles like this, so you have 2 tracks that are handing off the coaster. Take the support, slide the support there, slide it down over both sections of the loop, which is a little bit hard to manipulate, but voila, a constructed loop. Coaster Park, it's a game we're incredibly proud of, really happy with. We think it's a very unique game that's unlike anything else out there. Just remember, while you're playing the game, that there is a physics element to the game where you have to make sure that previous hills are not too big or too small from the hill in front of it. You need to make sure that you've manipulated this stuff. You can play with the widths of things a little bit, make sure things are nesting. Please make sure you construct the track appropriately. One other FAQ point that we've run into a few times, the game ends when somebody's built their 7th piece of track. Remember, that doesn't have to be one roller coaster, and in fact, won't be one roller coaster. Each player can have 3 of their own rides to build on, and it's 7 combined pieces of track between them. So construct multiple roller coasters. That's a good way to play the game. Have fun with it. We're really, really proud of this one, and hopefully you're having a great time with the game.